Hello everyone and welcome to Azam Weekly. And in this video, I'm going to show you that how you can consume a JSON API using the MV state design pattern. All right. And the app that we will be building will be using the OMDB API. So if you haven't really signed up, make sure that you go to the API key, sign up to get the key, and then you will be able to get all the information that you need from the API, which is basically the movie and the movie details. Okay. Now, when we're talking about the MV architecture or the model view pattern, we don't really mean that you're going to be performing a request right here. Like if you're doing something like this, fetch, whatever you want to call it, movies, this is not what I mean. In most of the apps where you're creating a much bigger apps, you will not be writing code like this. And the reason is pretty simple. If you want to perform fetch movies somewhere else, you won't be able to do that because now it is kind of like inside your view, which is also a view model. So what we want to do is to extract out those things. So what I'm going to do is construct a new folder. Let's call it services. And inside the services, I'm going to create a web service class. And this web service class will be responsible for performing all the network calls. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with load movies. Right now, we don't even have a movies structure, meaning a model. So probably we should do that first. As you can see, it's actually throwing some issues. Let me go ahead and create a new folder. I will call it models. And let's go ahead and take a look at the models. I'm going to create a new model to represent a movie. Now, if I go ahead and check out one of the responses, you can see that each model contains the title, the year, IMDb, type, and poster. Now, I don't really want all of that stuff. I only want probably the title, IMDb, and the poster. So that is what I'm going to be representing in my application. And also one other thing you will note is that all the different keys over here that you see are in uppercase, meaning the first letter is at least uppercase. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some mappings that we can use. So let me go ahead and quickly create the movie struct. There we go. You can see in the movie I have IMDb ID, we have title, poster, and the ID for the identifiable. It's something that is consistent, which is the IMDb ID, and the coding keys I'm using so that I can map from the JSON response keys back to my properties. Great. So this looks to be okay. Going back to the web service, now we can start writing our code. The first thing I want to do is get the request. Now again, I'm going to just put the URL over here. You can put it in a different file. That will be much better, obviously. So make sure you understand that. I'm just trying to create this quickly so you can at least understand the concept. All right. Next, I'm going to go ahead and perform the request. There we go. Now, one thing to note is that once you get the items back from the web service, it's not really an array of anything. It's basically an object. So there is a parent object which is sitting on top of the search results, and we need to construct that so that we can decode it easily. So I'm going to go into models and I'm going to create a new, which is called movie response. And the movie response is simply going to represent something that has a key called search, which is an array of movies. So let's go ahead and do that. It's pretty simple. There we go. Movie response, key called search, which is an array of movies. And using the coding keys, we can say that search is actually search key, or it's going to map to the search key coming from the JSON. Now we can go back to our web service and utilize that, meaning we can decode it so that it will give us the movie response. Once we get the movie response, we can return movie response.search. or an empty array. So this will be our network layer, which consists of a function called load movies, which is going to return you the movies. Now, in this simple application, I can go to my content view, which is also a view model, and I can perform this network request, meaning I can use web service. That's fine for this simple application. In some cases, you do need to manipulate the data, you do need to something else, you need to post a request and all of those different things. So in those cases, I'm just going to go ahead and create kind of a layer, and it might look like a view model layer. Oops, let me actually go ahead and create a folder first, but it's not. And I'll show you why it is not a view model. If I was creating a view model for my movie list screen, then I would probably have something like movie list view model. I will also have movie view model, which represents each movie, and so on, right? But the store that I'm creating over here, let's go ahead and create a store, is simply responsible for calling the web service and getting the data. That's what the store is doing. And it's not tied up to any view model. The whole architecture is kind of similar to this one, where you have different stuff like entities that you want to access. And this part right here, that's the store. So you need to go through the store to access that. So store is responsible for providing you access to the entities that you want, to the models. So these are all the different models. Now our app is kind of simple, so we don't really have that many models anyway. But if you do have a lot of models, then perhaps you can even divide your store. So instead of doing this, we can have multiple stores. Like this can be representing the array of products, this can be doing something else, and they will access certain entities. But our app is simple. We don't really need to create multiple stores. So I'm going to go ahead and create a store. But again, this store is not a view model with a fancy name called store. A view model is something for each screen. I'm not going to create a store for each screen. A store is more of an aggregate root. Main actor, meaning its responsibility is to provide the data, provide the models to the view. So we'll start with array of movies, and we will simply go ahead and say create a function called fetch movies. Pretty simple. The store is using the web service to load all the movies. You can actually create a web service with like a shared service. That's perfectly fine, but I'm just creating the instance and calling the load movies. But you should probably create it with a static singleton function. Okay, so this part is done. Now we can go back to our content view. And in the content view, we can try to display the movies. Now, in our application, we created the store, which is this one. If you want, you can put the store in environment object. That is perfectly fine. Our application may not really need that at this point because we're simply displaying the information. There's no editing of the data. The data is not really changing that I need to update certain other portions of the page. So I can simply use the state object in this scenario. Okay. Next up, I'm going to create a function that is going to go ahead and populate the movies. And we'll simply call it populate movies. After that, we can go through and display all the different stores. So let's go ahead and call list store.movies. And in this case, I will get access to the movie. And now I can go ahead and display something. So movie.title. I still need to call on task, not this, not just the task, I guess, and call store dot, or just call it populate movies. That's the function that we have. All right. Now, one of the things that we need to set up is navigation. Right now, you can see that I can definitely display all of that stuff. If you want, you can go ahead and even display an async image related to that. So let's go ahead and display the image. Probably good idea to put it in an edge stack. And now we can display the image. Let's see if the image is displayed. There we go. So we got the image also displaying, and we got the text also displaying. So in this case, we didn't really have to create any movie list view model and movie view model, nothing. So all those things were extra, and we didn't really needed those things. We're simply getting the data from a web service using the store, and the store puts it on the screen. We technically don't even need the store. I mean, I can simply call the web service from over here, but then the web service should become an observable object, just giving a little bit of a room over here, I guess. But the main purpose of store is to, kind of like aggregate the data if it needed. But right now you can see it's not really doing much. It's simply saying that, hey, web service, give me all the movies, and we set the movies. So there are many different variations you can do. The important point to note over here is that we didn't really created any view model. And store is not the view model. I know that somebody's going to be like, hey, so store has become a view model, right? No, it's not. Store is not the view model, because store is simply some place where you can access your model entities. And I'm not going to create another store for something related to movies. Even for this particular app, one store would be enough. If you're creating an app that is very, very, very large, you have like products and catalog and fulfillment and payment, maybe in those cases you should create multiple stores. All right. Okay, let's move forward. What we want to do now is we want the user to tap on any of these rows, and then they should be taken to a different screen. This means that we need some sort of a navigation link. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this in a navigation stack, which is introduced in iOS 16. And let's see, we can wrap it up. There we go. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to tell it where to go. So right over here, I can probably say navigation destination. Navigation destination will be based on a particular movie, meaning that we will get access to a particular movie that you tapped. And right now, I'm just going to go ahead and display the title of the movie right here. But we haven't really used a navigation link. So that's the important part. We should use navigation link, which is going to create that particular tap. So the value will be the actual movie, which is hashable. And the label is something that we see with our eyes. That will be the edge stack. Oops, there we go. All right, there we go. Looks fine, I guess. Yeah, looks fine. Okay. So this way we can see that we have the movies. It's not really going anywhere for now. Let's go ahead and run it in an actual simulator. We can put a navigation stack over here in the content view, and that should also work. But let's try to see if we can actually run this. Not sure why it keeps on asking about the ID and everything. Okay, let's make it happy. There we go. And let's go to movie app. Okay. Couple of things I'm noting over here is it's kind of like squeezed together. So I don't really like that. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our work is done correctly. So I think the navigation stack over here might be placed in the wrong place. So let me see where it ends. Let's remove that, and let's wrap the whole list in a navigation stack. There we go. And for the list, we will move this to the list. Hopefully we'll get back to normal. There we go, much better. I think it was just my mistake of putting something else somewhere, a hierarchy. Okay. Now, if I click on any of these things, you can see that it shows me the text view, Batman and all that stuff, right? In this case, I want to fetch further information from a completely different URL. So this means that my web service needs to update and we need to fetch a particular movie detail based on which movie I select. For that, I'm going to go ahead and create another model which is going to represent a movie detail. Movie detail. Now you might be thinking, why didn't I use the movie model? Well, I guess you can, but then you will have to put movie model over here with a lot of optionals because the first request doesn't really load a lot of stuff. It doesn't have the director name, the ratings, and all that stuff. So that's why it's usually a good idea to put them separate. Let's go ahead and create the movie detail model, which represents the detail of the movie. Now, this will be a completely different URL that we will need to invoke to get the details of the movie. So let's go to the web service. And we will simply call load movies by. We'll create a function. And you can see it's a completely different URL that we are calling. And we are injecting the movie ID right there. This is not really a good way of doing things. You should probably use the URL components to create this kind of a URL instead of just injecting it. It's never a good idea to inject these things. All right, but for time being, I'm just using this particular case just to show you that how your web service can request a particular movie based on the movie ID. Let's go back to the store. We will update the store to fetch a particular movie by ID. And we will put it inside the movie detail. Great. That looks good. Now we should probably create a view for our movie details. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a new view. And I will call it movie detail view. Okay. In the movie detail view, which is responsible for getting the movie based on the ID. So this means that we need the store and somebody is going to pass in the movie. Not the movie detail, but the movie. Okay. All right. Now over here, we need to pass in the movie because we said that the movie detail view needs a movie. And one of the ways that you can actually do that easily is by extending your movie model and provide a preview. So you can see that I'm adding a preview property which returns some sort of a hard-coded movie so that we can use that for our preview. So now over here, somebody says movie, I can say movie.preview. Correct. Let's go back to the movie detail. Movie detail currently doesn't really show anything. You can see it only has a text view and that doesn't really do anything. So what we need to do is we can display the movie detail. I'm just going to display it in a list. If let movie detail, I'm going to unwrap it, store.movie detail. We're going to unwrap that. If that is all good, then we will display the image of the movie and we will also display the title of the movie. All right, let's go ahead and build it. And let's see if we can get something to be displayed. It's not really displaying anything right now. Okay, that's fine. Probably we have to run the application and see if something is displayed. I'm not sure why it's not displaying anything. Let's go to the store. This is fine. Actually, it might not be displaying anything because we never ran anything, right? So in the task, we can go ahead and say try await store.fetch movies by ID and then movie.id. Catch and then just print out the error. Okay, so now hopefully when we load the page, we should be getting some sort of a movie, hopefully, and we should be able to display the image as well as the text. I think it's trying to load at least. Hopefully the simulator is going to catch up. Doesn't look like it. Let's go and build it. Preview, refresh the preview again. Sometime it helps. Doesn't look like it's helping it. Okay, we'll see what's going on. Let's go back to our content view. And instead of the text view, we will go to the movie detail view and pass in the movie. Now we can go ahead and run the application and see that if this works or not. Okay, so something is not getting right. You can see the URL resource could not be let, transport security, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so transport security issue, this means that we have to go to our info and we need to add a flag over there, all right? And that particular flag, in this case, is called app transport security settings. So we're just gonna go ahead and add something over here. There we go. Let's go ahead and add. Oh, I think I added the wrong one. Arbitrary loads. Yes. After that, let's go ahead and make the request again. And there we go. So we are able to make the request and get the details of the movie. Now, the detail of the movie contains a lot of different stuff. It's not only the image of the movie and this the name of the movie. It contains the ratings. It contains a lot of other stuff. All right. So I would say that if you are interested, you can definitely check out OMDB documentation, and you'll find out that it contains a lot of other stuff. So our app is working fine. This is great. One other thing that we can do is go to the News API and also display the news related to the movie. Now, most of these movies will not really have any news because the name of the movie, which in this case Batman, will be used to get the news, and only Batman will have the news, not Batman, Mask of the Phantom, or this and that. Okay, but the question is, well, how do we get the details of the news based on the name of the movie? If you read the News API documentation, you will find out that they do have URLs that will allow you to pass a keyword, and it will simply perform a search based on the keyword that you're passing. So let me go ahead and add that function. But before we do that, we need to create another model which is going to be representing the news article. So let's go ahead and add something. News article. This will be the actual news article that we are going to be receiving from the News API. So this is going to represent that. You can also see their documentation. You can see that they will return you the title, the description. They don't really have any ID. They have URL to image. But all of this is inside a parent object, which is important because in order to map this, just like the result from the OMDB, we will need to create kind of like a news article response object. So let's go ahead and create that. I will call it news article response. And now I can simply create this part. There we go. Now in the web service, we can go and create another function, which is going to give us the news article by the keyword. So if I pass in Tesla, it should give me all the Tesla news. But since you know that we're not really passing keyword as Tesla, we're passing it as Batman. So this word will be injected right in the URL, and we will be able to get some news related to that movie name. In most cases, that will return nothing, but if we pass in Batman, we will be able to get some sort of a news related to Batman. Once again, creating a URL like this is never a good idea. You should always use URL components to construct your URLs. Okay, so we have load news articles. Let's go to our store. And this is where you will see, hopefully, that the store is not a view model. A store is to manage the data, kind of like an aggregate model or an aggregate service that manages the models or entities coming from different sources. So we can go ahead and add news article. And now we can add a function that will fetch those particular news articles and populate the news articles entity array or model array. And now the only thing that is remaining for us to do is to perform this action and display the news. So let's go jump into our movie detail view. We will try to call store.fetch articles by keyword, where the keyword can be the title. And now we need to make sure that we are displaying those things. All right. Now, do you want to display the article first or the movie image and text first. Probably movie, image, and text, right? So we can go over here and say if the store.newsarticles.is empty, if it's not empty, then go ahead and display all the different articles that you have found. Else, and in most cases, I think it will display this. We will simply say no articles found. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and run this and see that if we can see the movies, Batman movies, and also the details of the movie as well as the articles. There we go. We can see the articles associated with the Batman movie, and they are all coming from the News API. If I go ahead and click on any one of those, I will probably not see any articles because there are no articles related to Batman Year 1. Probably they're only for Batman, and that's pretty much it. Really depends on the movie. Maybe there's no news for these kind of Batman, The Knight Returns, blah, blah, blah. All right. And there you have it. This is how we will create an application which is consuming a JSON API, and we are using the model view pattern. One thing to realize over here is that we didn't really created any view models. And no, once again, the store is not the view model. If we were creating view models, I would probably have movie list view model, movie view model, article, news article list view model, and new movie detail view model, right? And then news article view model. So 4 or 5 different files, which would do pretty much nothing. I mean, we can do all of that stuff right in our view using the store. And you can see that our views are not like crazy big or anything. I mean, I still have the opportunity to go ahead and make this into a much smaller view by simply calling it the movie cell view. That is perfectly fine. So this way you will learn that MVVM design pattern may not be the best fit in most of these SwiftUI applications. All right, as you can see over here. Now this is granted a very, very simple app, and you can do this app with your eyes closed, but hopefully it does kind of prove the point is that we didn't really need view models to create the same app. I can create the same app using view model, but that will be a little bit of extra work, extra 4 or 5 files, and all those different layers for no good reason. So try it out. Try out the model view pattern. This is the same pattern that Apple is using, by the way, so it's not something that I invented. So this is the same pattern that Apple is using in their different application, different samples that they're doing. So definitely check out their applications like Fruta, and also I think it's called the food truck application. And all of their samples are using a similar pattern where they don't really have another layer of abstraction. They just have the model, and model is displayed on the view, and that's it. All right, so hopefully you will enjoy this. Thank you so much. If you like this video and want to support my channel, then the best way would be to check out my courses on Udemy. I have a lot of different courses ranging from building augmented reality apps using Reality Kit and AR Kit, Swift declarative interfaces, core data, MVVM design pattern and UI kit, RX Swift, Swift for intermediate developers, and also web development like Node course. So there are a lot of different courses. Definitely check them out. And I really hope that you have enjoyed the video. Share it. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel. And thank you.